Desmond Fowobi, who is our analyst for today. Hello, Patriot. Compliments of the season, and thanks for joining us.
uh, Compliment of the season, Bito, and good morning to you.
Now, let's begin with the headline I just read out and the controversies with mixed reactions greeting the amounts as appropriated for the presidential air fleet. Whilst we hear that some is for the repair and rehabilitation, others are also in the ongoing status of amounts previously budgeted, upon which we have new budgets appropriated for almost the same. What do you make of these conversations? I remember in the year 2024 when the National Assembly spoke about the urgency in which President Bola Ahmed Tinubu needed a presidential jet, a lot of Nigerians reacted as does.
Um, you see, the National Assembly is supposed to be the voice of the people. And sorry to say this present 10th Assembly has not really represented the people because most of the time politics is being played and democracy, you know, is really defeated in the sense that democracy should be the government of the people where the majority opinion and the majority will case the minority hegemony, the oligarchy, the people who represented the many interests of others that were now elected as senates and reps in the National Assembly takes decision without carrying the people along. How many of these reps, how many of these senates actually listen to the wills and caprices of the people before assenting to a particular law or a particular bill? You see that they just do things on their own. They just do things on their own. And when the people complained about the presidential jets, the National Assembly still went ahead to push to us to approve the allocation for that presidential jet. Though it looks like the presidential jet is necessary, it is important, considering the complaints and the dilapidation to the other presidential jets and some of the controversies that we are facing at that time. So it is important we establish this that the National Assembly should be for the people. The National Assembly should be for the people. The National Assembly should, at all points, consider the people in whatever they are doing before they go ahead to make some of these bills, and so that people will stop accusing the National Assembly as rubber stamp assembly.
Now, one of the issues with the presidential jet as well is on the need for one now, citing the fact that it's been several presidents since this current jet was in use. Now, do you think that in terms of a life cycle for the jets, the National Assembly could also include in its appropriations a recommendation for how long this should last in the event or in the future that another president would require another presidential jet?
I don't think it's the uh, responsibility of the National Assembly. Rather, recommendation can make uh, to the Air Force and the management of our airways based on it requires expert opinion and expert views. It is not just something that the National Assembly, they are lawmakers, they are not professionals.
In terms
Though
of
we
their
may have,
oversight, why I ask this question is because the National Safety Investigation Bureau It's supposed to be the ones with this recommendation are
Yes,
saddled. But now, since the
yes.
National Assembly has its oversight functions overseeing the activities of the NSIB as well, it almost feels as though there's no regulatory agency or person in question who can recommend or even checkmate the dealings of the NSIB.
Um, the National Assembly, like you rightly said, they have the rights for oversight functions. They have the power to oversight uh, of these organizations. But the National Assembly cannot, you know, single-handedly decides the number of years that it should take. Rather, they can only follow the recommendation from the appropriate agency of the government. So it is not completely the power of the National Assembly. And that is what I am trying to establish here.
Now, there's also the concern of recent air crashes. Whilst the Nigerian airspace has been relatively free of any of such sad reports, there have also been a couple of skid off incidences recorded in 2024. Now, we also hear that the Nigerian Airspace Management Agency has been allotted 7 billion naira for its operations going into 2025. Would you applaud this appropriation in also ensuring that the Nigerian airspace is kept free from any unlikely sad accidents?
Definitely, Bito. You see, there's no. I don't think we have problem with this particular appropriation for the safety of the airspace. I don't think there is a controversy as regards the particular amount that is allocated. Where Nigerians always fought this appropriation, most times it is where it is uh, diverted or not used judiciously to the later when the letters in the appropriation is not followed. Sometimes you will see that certain allocation has been made for a particular project in the running year. You find out that in the course of that year, that particular money is diverted completely to another project or diverted to another agency, diverted or not used. That's where we normally plan. And when it is not used, that is when it is now open to abuse. And that's where you now see that agencies will now find ways to see how they can divert the money for their own personal and selfish use. But normally, if this appropriation made for the safety of the airspace is judiciously used, it is for the interest of the country. It is for the interest of the airspace, who should boost the sector, economy of the sector. And that is, for me, I don't think there is anything wrong with the allocation as regarding the safety of the airspace. Where Nigerians always have issue, it is the misappropriation or diversion of such appropriation to other agency or personal use.
Now, let's move on to another issue in the news this morning, and it's concerning a breakdown in what is believed to be the cordiality enjoyed by two neighboring countries. Now, whilst there has been a fractured relationship in ECOWAS, seeing three of its states break away to form the Sahelian states, which are all under military junta rule, the likes of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Niger's junta leader has taken a step forward over the weekend by leveling heavy accusations against President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's recent visit to France, saying that Nigeria and France are colluding to sabotage Niger in terms of destabilizing it. Now, this morning, the papers are agog with more mixed reactions, calling on stringent measures to be meted against such comments. I don't know, let's begin with where you think that the Nigerian government has gotten its information that there are certain French troops within Nigeria's borders that are looking to destabilize their country.
Um, Bito, I told you something last about 2 weeks ago, when the issue of Nigeria paying about 82 billion US dollars as arrears for their fee or dues for the year, and paying it. And this is the first time Nigeria in 19 years, I guess, or 26 years, 19 years, that the country is paying such amount of money to ECOWAS. And that happened shortly after the visit of the president to France, and after the fraternization and discussion, international politics has been, made by the president with the President Macron and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And the president came back to the country, and after the meeting at the ECOWAS, after the meeting of the ECOWAS, the president the next day announced this. So that moves naturally, even if the Malian
The Nigerian
government
government.
has not gotten any cogent information. With that move alone, it will be natural for him to come up with such beliefs and allegation. But then I would also want the president to tread with caution. We are talking about regional peace, and wouldn't want anything that would jeopardize the peace of the region as a result of the interest of an international, another country from the Europe. You
Now,
see,
Patriot, let's be quite frank with some of the allegations and how it is perceived. Whilst many are saying that France has not been fair to its francophone countries, with many of them looking to be decolonized by France, rejecting the language, and also accusing France of sabotaging their mineral resources. Many
mm,
asking, what could Nigeria probably want with France in exchange for certain business relations if they are indeed guilty of having done that to the francophone countries?
you see, whether you like it or not, France is a big name. France is a big country, and France is is a member of one of the Security Council of the United Nations. And you know what that means? It means that they are one of the decision maker of how the policy of IMF, the policy of World Bank, and they can also push for a lot of things for Nigeria, like loan holiday, as in we can get rebate, we can get a lot of benefit from United Nations. They can make a recommendation to IMF. So there is a lot. There can also be technology transfer. There can be bilateral understanding where there has to be understanding between the Nigeria government and France government in terms of export and import. And don't forget also the transfer of technology. Don't forget that about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, immediately after the return of the president, we have some international machineries that came to Nigeria to boost the morale of our of the Nigerian army as regards how they can use technology to prosecute the war of borderline conflict and the invasion of some of these bandits, invasion of some of these uh, guerrilla warfare from these neighboring countries, especially those who are coming in from the border. So they are like to train the Nigerian army or to partner with the Nigerian army on how to prosecute this conflict using technology and the rest of them. So it may be misconstrued by this government as a means of trying to penetrate them, to destabilize their country because of the current tension. When there is a war, when there is a conflict between two countries, even there are certain moves that are supposed to be beneficiary to the country that will misunderstood to be because of the volatile or the volatility or because of the ongoing conflict between the two countries, because information are not freely and properly distributed. So every moves that you make they may want to actually see it as against their own country. So it is wise and important for us to establish here that the Nigerian government, considering their proximity with this ECOWAS country, should be on the part of this ECOWAS country than France. I have my reason. The reason is because these countries have been as strongly accused the French government of exploitations and also undermining growth and development in this country and sabotaging their natural resources against their development. So these are every allegation why why British colonized Nigeria, though some of us will believe that Europe, British still have their presence here through neo-colonialism and through some of the businesses that have been established here in West Africa, especially Nigeria. But it was not direct. But if you go to francophone countries, you find out that France have direct exploitation of their resources against these people in this 21st century. These are every allegation that has undermined development in West Africa. So I feel ECOWAS should look at the issue critically and come up with a resolution that will be favorable to the region, to these countries, rather than any international politics of doom.
I think that's one of the good resolutions I think the ECOWAS can adopt following your motion on the subject. But let's also look at the people affected by this. If you recall earlier this year when some stringent measures were issued by ECOWAS and particularly Nigeria following Niger's decision to pull away from ECOWAS, it also involved the suspension of electricity supply to Niger and certain stringent border conditions. Persons living around the border between Nigeria and Niger cried out to the federal government, some of whom are Nigerians, saying that these sanctions are affecting them the most other than affecting Niger. This morning, those persons again are in the news asking the government of Niger and Nigeria to peacefully resolve their issues in the fear that they will be again hit by any breakdown in the cordiality shared between these two neighboring countries. With these people in mind, how do you call on the governments in question to approach the issue?
Yes, I believe that the president should know better. Yes, I am a student of politics, international politics, and I'm a political uh, student as well. And I'm telling you, sincerely speaking, Bito, that the people are affected really because when you have, but my challenge is that I do not see presently ECOWAS moving in the right direction. The truth is, West Africa, Nigeria, Niger, Ghana, Togo, Liberia, Sierra Leone, these countries have not really performed extensively well in terms of the development using the natural resources of this country. These countries are blessed with enormous natural resources that this fraternity and fragmentation and relationship in ECOWAS should have looked at developing the capacity of each of these countries to deliver the dividends of government, capitalizing on their natural resources. But yet, ECOWAS has not really done well in the development of the basic amenities like electricity in each of these countries. No country of the world should be depending on another country for electricity, for water supply, for, it is still exploitation. Do you know that there are so many African countries that cannot on their own survive without the interference of France and some other international partners. And the reason is not because this country cannot actually survive. It's not because this country do not have what it takes to be on the uh, uh, on the global map of developed countries. But the problem is that this same organization, this same international, these countries from in the Europe had still the country that is exploiting this country against the people, and now the people are bitter. People are complaining. So I do not see a reason why Nigeria government will not be on the see. There is a place for international politics. First of all, our neighbor, our neighbors is not France is not our neighbor. You see, Niger, Chad, Cameroon, they are our neighbor. And by extension, they are our people. Because of the proximity to Nigeria, definitely you are going to have a lot of people from Chad that lives in Nigeria, and you are going to have a lot of Nigerians that live in Chad. ECOWAS should get it right. ECOWAS should start, for example, ECOWAS should have independent electricity that is not Nigeria electricity. It could be planted along the borderline across the whole ECOWAS community, and it will be contributed. The money for development of these dams and this ECOWAS should now be ECOWAS of the people, not ECOWAS of states. What we are seeing in ECOWAS, and that is why people do not even understand what is happening there. ECOWAS should be an institution that regulates how the countries in West Africa relate for prosperity, for peace, and for development. But right now, ECOWAS is mainly a political organization that has not really given the best to the development of West Africa and creating peace. You see, the reason why we're having a lot of conflicts along our borderlines is because ECOWAS is not sitting right at the moment. Once ECOWAS is more interested in development than politics, some of the conflicts and some of the injustice that has led to banditry, kidnapping, and this conflict will naturally reduce. And that is where the direction I want ECOWAS to be thinking. Seriously, it is a big issue. And some of the conflicts and some of the violent attacks and violent conflict we are seeing in Nigeria, like we have been experiencing it. Some of the people that prosecute this conflict, though they have the support of some Nigerians, some of them are coming from outside Nigeria. And then if ECOWAS understand that people have rights to move from one ECOWAS country to another country without visa, then our thinking should not only be for our own country. We should now think for our country and think for other country. And ECOWAS should be responsible for this politics, for balancing situations towards the development of the people. I hope you get this message, Bito.
I get your point on that. In keeping with more issues, let's move on and review more homegrown issues whilst we look to strengthen our relationship with our neighbors, borrowing from your words. Back here at home, 2024 has been a year, many would say, of some intriguing politics that have heated up the polity. It's been a year characterized by Rivers State's crisis, the political impasse in that state. It's also been characterized by the End Hunger / End Bad Governance protest. But above all, these challenges have also somewhat seen a reshuffle of the cabinet at the presidential level following growing concerns of non-performance by Nigerians. In reviewing the year, let's begin with Rivers State, because it's another case of how two positions that are supposed to be brothers instead have further divided the state, even fracturing the state's legislature. Let's get your review on how best that breakdown in relationship could have been handled by the Rivers State key political actors. Mind you, this morning we're seeing an ex-governor and the FCT minister trading words again in the media.
Yes. You see, It is quite pathetic and unfortunate that sometimes when gladiators, political gladiators conflict, it is the people, not the grass, that suffers. When they say where two elephants, you know, engage in a fight, it is the grass that will suffer. Now, the current ongoing conflicts between the incumbent governor of River State, Sim Fubara, and the former governor of River State, now Minister of FCT, Nyesom, Barrister Nyesom Wike, has affected development in River State. Whether you like it or not, a lot of people that I've interacted with personally have said this on countless occasions that the ongoing conflict in River State has affected their own business, has affected democracy, has affected governance, that the government has concentrated more in trying to fight the minister. The present governor of River State has channeled his energy and he has spent the state money to, instead of using it for development, he's trying to use it, to win more friends to his own side, to fight the powerful, the very powerful Wike, the former governor of the state. And this is not what we should be talking about if truly these leaders have interest in the development of the state and empowering their people. Because the fight in the first instance is needless. It's needless because the incumbent governor has accused his godfather, Barrister Nyesom Wike, of trying to be over, that his influence is overstretching in his governance. And the ex-governor has also complained that he has a structure that he needs to service. And this has caused a serious decay, a serious gap between the both of them. And none of them is ready to back down. But what I just want to beg these people is not even the people of the River State, because right now it seems they are helpless. It seems they cannot do anything until 2027, when they can now speak through the ballots. It is to beg these two, especially Barrister Nyesom Wike, to share his sword and allow this young man to rule. If he has anything against him in 2027, you can use all your instruments, your political instruments and structure against him, becoming winning the election for the second time. But for now, this conflict is really needless. It has affected growth and development of the state. So if truly Barrister Nyesom Wike have the interest of the state, have the interest of the people, he will stop servicing his own structure against the government of the day.
Now, the role of elder statesmen in resolving the issue, we saw a peace pact as signed under the guidance of the president. People say the state needs a non-political situation or solution, rather. Oddly, the ex-governor is an elder statesman, much like Sir Edwin Clark. But this morning, we hear the FCT minister saying that the credibility of the ex-governor, Peter Odili, is in question, and he's not deserving to be called an elder statesman. The solution to this crisis, with the role of elder statesmen in resolving it, further infringed upon by this statement, do you see any end soon ahead of 2027, which you say might be the deciding day to solve this quarrel?
The president's intervention of the crisis at River State at that time was timely, was very, very important. Otherwise, we would have had a turnout of more serious violent conflict in River State. But then, the governor of River State, as well as the ex-governor Barrister Nyesom Wike, have actually not followed the content of that resolution to the letter. And that is why you're still having this issue. The president has been disrespected by Barrister Nyesom Wike, and the governor also, in trying to defend his issue has also default. The governor also has defaulted on this, trying to defend himself, and that is why you see this ongoing crisis. Because ordinarily, the president has intervened in this issue, but the two of them, they are not ready to shed their sword, and because it is not a binding, some of the resolution, the peaceful resolution that was made by the president is not, is political, is not by law. So they are at will. Barrister Yeson Wike is at will to either adhere to it or to reject it, and that is why you see the tension increasing in the state. But I think for this conflict to be, because the Barrister Yeson Wike is not looking like he's ready to shed his sword any moment soon. So the only person right now that can also intervene again is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the employer of Barrister Yeson Wike, and he can call him to order if he is really interested.
Well, let's not dwell so much on Rivers as we have other issues to discuss, but we'll come back to it in a bit, especially with the 2027 projections you're making. In terms of the overarching effects of the policies of the federal government on the year, greeted by protests, some labeled those protests end hunger, others labeled it end hardship or end bad governance. But it's been about the common denominator, which is a higher cost of living for Nigerians. The president addressed gentlemen of the press in his maiden presidential media chart, but said that he did not regret the removal of fuel subsidy. Now, in
Yes.
shaping some of the realities that would be faced with next year, how do you suggest that Nigerians brace up? Because you've been one of the persons calling for patience with the renewed hope mandate. Do you see any respites coming in either the first, second, or third quarters of 2025 in line with when things would shape up to be perceived as being better by Nigerians?
First of all, the presidential media party that took place in Lagos State, where we have members of the fourth estate of the realm having to interrogate and chat with the president, has really given Nigeria more tips into the personality of the president. And then he seems is in charge. It seems the president is in charge of his policies and his government. And whatsoever that is happening right now in the country, the president proves through his speech that day that he knows everything that is going. In short, he speaks like one who understood each policy, how it's going to affect the people, and he was saying it authoritatively that he knew that there are going to be hard times. He knew that there is going to be some people that will fight back. He knew that the policy is going to affect the people this way, and was ready for it, and there is no going back. So there is not much that we can say, because it seems that some of the things we are saying about non-performance of some of the agencies and some of the ministries and some of the sector of the economy, the president is hearing it. But being who he is, he felt that let's follow it squarely, that we are going to benefit from it later. And those are the words of the president. Now, what can we say as analysts? The only thing we can call for right now is patience in order to avoid anarchy, in order to avoid some unnecessary agitations. Now, the president has spoken. Who are we to challenge the president? The only thing we can do for all the people is that, yes, the man, the president, the father of the country, seems to understood what he was doing. Now let's be patient with him to see truly if these reforms, this policy direction, this hardship will end us in joy, if there will be light at the end of the tunnel, like the president has promised. Otherwise, the people will speak, and that will happen very soon. 2027 is behind the corner. 27 is just some days away. Yes, it might look like it is 2 years, But it is very, very soon, my brother. The people we have to speak, then we can speak authoritatively to the ballot to say, no, we do not want this Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu again to be our president or anybody from the APC. So for now, we need to plead on the Nigerian people. The president has spoken, and from the way he speaks, it shows that he has control of the government. You understood that he has to take some tough decisions, and people will have to bear that pain of some of these decisions, as he has said that decision is for the prosperity of the country, that he is laying the right foundation for the country. But then, some of the areas where we have issues is that, yes, the people, the common people, the poor Nigerians are only the one suffering from the pains of these reforms. And that is where we can tell the government to look into their policy to ensure that the poor and the rich have a fair sharing of these pains, these sacrifices that we have to pay right now for that prosperity that he has envisioned.
Now, it sounds as though the president has a lot to do on his table, and having boasted of one of the largest cabinets in Nigeria's political history, he also addressed it in his media parley. But he said, having reshuffled the cabinet, he thinks that he has the right hands on deck to bring about the policy initiatives that he has envisioned for Nigeria. But this morning again, the papers are very critical about the condition of the state of Nigerian roads, particularly in reference to the performance of the Minister of Works, Engineer David Umwahi. Now, the promises have been made by him in past. The timeline, not too well in keeping with those promises. It almost seems as though the minister is more focused on the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway than the interstate roads in Nigeria. In judging the performance of such ministers, much like Engineer David Umwahi, do you think that the president still has a few blocks to push around or chess pieces to move around the board to actually get it right in terms of his team?
Yeah, Bito, thank you so much for this particular areas that you just touched. I am a traveler. I travel a lot, north, west, south, east, different parts of this country. Sometimes I choose to do that through air, and most times I do that through the road. So when I speak about Nigeria road, I can be authoritative in that area. I tell you, if you're to judge the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu with the state of our road, you give the president 30 over 100. He has underperformed. This current government has underperformed in terms of maintenance of or servicing old roads. Now, to Mr. President, you cannot call out Engineer Dave Humai. Do you know why? Because to the president is performing because he is building and constructing new roads. New roads. He's working. Yes, Engineer Dave is working. But what benefits presently of what benefits is this road to the people? These roads have future benefits to the country and to the people. And that's why balance is key in life. And that is what this government, I think the only let me use mistakes that this government is making is that in all sectors and all their reform, they are more focused on the future, forgetting that you cannot have a perfect future if you don't know where we are coming from, if you don't concentrate on the present in order to get that desired future. In politics, I can say that the president or this government is making a huge blunder. You cannot abandon the servicing of the current road across the country because you are building new roads for future prosperity. It means that you want these current roads to be completely bad. That means we will now have to overuse the new ones you are constructing. That if it is overstretched, it will still go back to this. So that's not a good policy or a direction for me. The government needs to look at its policies again and factor in their policy that all our roads, the farmer, President Bola Ahmed need to strengthen farmer. Farmer was best during President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. You could see FEMA in the nooks and crannies of this country across the east, the north, the south, and the west. But today, FEMA has completely disappeared from our federal roads. And they are saddled with the is an agency of the government, saddled with the responsibility to maintain, to ensure that our roads are still what? Are still good in a in a way that it can still be managed and used. If you're coming from Lagos through road to Abuja, you will experience thousands of potholes that has become a death trap to millions of people. And then, as a government, your number one concern is the safety, security of the people. If we lost our best brain to road accidents, who are the people who are going to use the new road you are constructing? So the president needs to look again at this policy, and we need, if there are some mistakes in the way FEMA is handling the road, we can correct it as a country. But FEMA has to return to our road. It is very, very important so that they can continue to manage federal roads. As many state governors continuously abandoned this federal road, even in their immediate state. Even if this road passes through the capital, they abandon them.
Now, in closing, we'll look at the states, especially from that angle. Now, the Guardian had earlier talked about states over depending on federal allocation whilst their IGR is low. And this will be my last question to you. Approaching 2025, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu looks to have justified one of the reasons for removing fuel subsidy, saying that it has given more money to the states. But the states, in turn, have failed to translate this money into infrastructural projects. Most of them say it's used up in paying salaries and in the running of the states. How can states actively divest and support IGR whilst reducing dependency on FAC?
It is important we establish this, Bito, that a lot of states in the country have what it takes to generate good IGR if only they want to. But it now looks like the states are not interested in looking inwardly or thinking outside the box because of free lunch that they are being served from the FAC allocation. You can see in this last quarter, only three states in Nigeria had from the IGL more money from what they are being allocated. That is to tell you that only three states can actually survive as of that last quarter if there were no federal allocation. And let me tell you, Bito, is there any state in this country that you think does not have resources and youths? I said it last time. Is there any state you think does not have what it takes, to generate revenues? They do have it, but most of these state governors are lazy and they are not even thinking rightly. And that is where we have the major challenge. The federal government cannot think for itself and also think for the state and force the state to execute those thinkings. They meet in Abuja almost every month before FAC is being shared. Why is the president not charging the state to look inwardly? If there are certain reforms that need to be made, I think it is time that the government needs to look at those reforms so that the state will be empowered to take charge of their state in employing more young people to take control of certain sectors and areas: agriculture, marine, economy, technology, and so many aspects of manufacturing. The state government, I know state government generally does not have hand in business, but to provide enabling environment for business to thrive. Now, what I want to suggest and advise the state government is that They need to approach what they call the PPP approach, public-private partnership, to influence businesses that will capture more young people in mining, in agriculture, agropreneur, marine economy, manufacturing, export, and all that. There are resources in the state. All these young people need is the support, the enabler from the state government and private sector. And you see that once I am working, you are working, everybody is working, it will contribute to the prosperity of the state. And that is why you see FCT, Lagos, Rivers, and Ogun. You see that these states are thriving. They are thriving simply because more people are engaged in economic activities. There are so many states you go to in Nigeria today. Most of the youths are either in one bet Nigeria all, playing Naira bets, playing bets, betting and all that, gambling their future away and wasting this youthful energy that could have been channeled into something worthwhile, something productive for national growth and development.
Well,
And that
Patriot,
is why the state government needs to think twice going into the 2025 year to see that more young people must, as a matter of must, state of emergency must be incorporated
into useful ventures. I agree with you.
into useful for venture, Bito.
Well, Patriot Desmond, time I'm afraid is not our friend, but you've raised some salient points, and I'm hoping that the next time we'll meet, which would be the new year, we can pick up from where we left off. But in the interim, I'll say a happy holiday to you, and we're looking back to having you in the FCT as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Bito.